I'm Robert Costa in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. We start tonight with breaking news. A ceasefire has been agreed to between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. President Biden made the announcement that the United States has secured the deal.
Today, I have some good news to report from the Middle East. I just spoke with the Prime Minister of Israel and Lebanon. I'm pleased to announce that their governments have accepted the United States proposal to end the devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah.
Meanwhile, back here at home, President-elect Trump, he's focusing on two election promises. Trump border czar Tom Homan on the southern border today, promising the largest deportation program in history. Trump also pledged to impose hefty tariffs on two of our biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico, as well as China. We'll take a look at how those countries are responding to the president-elect's threat, and if Trump can get Congress eventually on his side on this trade position. We'll also get to more on the transition ahead, but we start with the Middle East and that ceasefire deal. Scott MacFarlane joins us from the White House. Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon. Charlie, let's begin with you over at the Pentagon. Now that this deal seems to be in place, what happens next?
Yeah, Bob, for starters, it's an end to hostilities in roughly 4 hours' time, 4 a.m. local time. You've seen the intensity of the bombardment Israel has been unleashing on suspected Hezbollah targets right up to the end. So U.S. officials tells us what comes next is there'll be a 10-day period for Israeli troops to start withdrawing from southern Lebanon. That's to be completed within 60 days. Why so long? It's going to take some time for the Lebanese army to fill that void. We're talking around roughly 5,000 troops, and they just simply don't have the capacity to do it, officials tell me here. Hezbollah has already been pushed north of the Litani River. That happened today, as a matter of fact. That's not just symbolic, but under a previous agreement back in 2006, that sort of natural geographical boundary was where Hezbollah was supposed to stay north of. So that's now part of this deal. In remarks today, without going into detail, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that any violation of that deal would be met with, his words, a forceful response. So it's now just up to the Lebanese army, the UN force, UNIFIL, to control that territory. And there will be a component of U.S. International monitors, including the U.S. monitors. But it means roughly 60 to 70,000 displaced Israelis can go home, as well as thousands of Lebanese residents eventually.
And Charlie, if you don't mind, stick with you for a moment here. What's the impact, if any, on the ongoing conflict in Gaza? And does this play any role in shaping how those negotiations could eventually take place?
Well, as far as the Biden administration is concerned, they absolutely see this as a catalyst. And we also have to remember that, Iran has been briefed on this peace deal because Hezbollah is part of their proxy. So neither Hezbollah or Iran are in any kind of, negotiating strength. And there's been a lot of retaliation that's come in a 1-2 punch from Hezbollah and Iran itself. As far as ceasefire in Gaza, it removes a powerful weapon in a sort of partnership with Hezbollah. The Israelis see this as two separate fights, but Hezbollah had said that they wouldn't stop fighting until the war in Gaza was over. They've obviously dropped that demand. So Israelis are hoping this will leave Hamas more isolated. But again, U.S. officials said there's going to be some shuttle diplomacy happening. This is what President Biden himself said, in places like Turkey and Qatar, to serve as a catalyst to bring an end to the fighting in Gaza and to bring those hostages home.
Scott, you're over at the White House. President Biden addressed this plan this afternoon. Let's take a listen.
Under the deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. Will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. What is left of Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations will not be allowed, I emphasize, will not be allowed to threaten the security of Israel again.
Scott, what's the mood over there among your sources close to President Biden as they digest this information? This is the final stage of the Biden presidency, yet a lot seems to be happening on the foreign policy front.
This happens at a particularly sensitive moment, doesn't it, Bob, where you're in the middle of a transition from one administration to the next, and you have this international diplomatic victory, but one that isn't secured immediately. It's a process. It's going to take 2 months for the move out of some troops and the move in of others. That this is a process that needs to be ongoing has been emphasized through the day here at the White House and by the administration. But this has also been a priority of the administration's. We know that the president talked with the president of France on Friday, and the White House has ascribed credit to France for helping to secure this ceasefire agreement. The Biden administration officials with whom we've been speaking over the past few months have emphasized this is a priority. What's more, they've said unequivocally that not only is a ceasefire agreement needed to end the fighting, but that there needs to be a security plan to make sure Israelis feel comfortable moving back to the northern regions of the country, back to the border areas. I think you saw President Biden synthesize a lot of that into his statement today. This is a triumphant moment of sorts for President Biden, but he has undoubtedly, Bob, also pulled a crisis potentially off the plates of his successor.
Scott, a U.S. official also tells CBS News that President-elect Trump and his advisors have been briefed about this arrangement. What are you hearing about those discussions?
A few different things. First of all, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, speaking in Italy at the G7 conference, said that there are conversations and lines of communication already open between him and Marco Rubio, the Florida senator who is Trump's designee to be his Secretary of State nominee, the Secretary of State who would take over this issue in the Middle East. That line of communication is open. Here's another line of communication that's open. The Trump campaign and transition has triumphantly said that the Hezbollah figures in the Middle East, the proxies for Iran, heard the clock ticking toward the beginning of the Trump administration, January 20th, and that might have leveraged this deal, too. Not sure the White House would agree with that, but at some point soon, the Trump team is taking over the Middle East.
Charlie D'Agata and Scott MacFarlane, two first-rate correspondents. Appreciate your time and your reporting. Now to that Trump transition. Correspondent Nikole Killion in West Palm Beach, Florida tonight. Nikole, great to see you. What are you hearing down there in Florida about how this ceasefire is playing out at Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, well, as you just reported, we do know, according to a U.S. official, that the Trump team was briefed on this. However, administration officials say that really a lot of these negotiations began in earnest well before the election. So from that standpoint, they weren't necessarily involved in the negotiations part of things, but certainly were kept abreast of the developments. And that being said, we are hearing from a Trump-Vance transition official who tells us that President Trump has been crystal clear that his support for Israel and his commitment to peace in the Middle East is steadfast, also adding that Hezbollah understands this is their best opportunity to get a more favorable deal done, and going on to say that Iran-backed proxies clearly see the clock ticking as President Trump will soon return to the White House. We have also heard from other members within the president-elect's orbit, including Michael Waltz, who has been named to serve as part of the president's national security team. And he also, is kind of suggesting that a lot of this is happening because President Trump, President-elect Trump, will be coming into office soon. So there's a little bit of spin depending on, which side you talk to in terms of the Biden White House versus the Trump transition team. But certainly a sense of relief that this deal has finally been done.
Nikole, what are you hearing about Tom Homan, the border czar, who was in Texas today with the Republican Governor Greg Abbott? Let's first listen to him giving a fiery speech. Here's what Tom Homan had to say.
For the last 4 years, I wake up every morning pissed off about what this administration did to the most secure border in my lifetime. Let me be clear. I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president I worked for took steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have strong national security if you don't have border security.
So, Nikole, you have Tom Homan, even before January 20th, 2025. He's out in front on this border policy, the looming migration policy when it comes to mass deportation. Stephen Miller, the incoming deputy White House chief of staff, among others, has a lot of influence. Kristi Noem, the nominee for Department of Homeland Security. But it's Homan who's out there, Homan who seems to be in the spotlight. What do you make of that, and what does your reporting tell you?
Yeah, well, certainly very significant. I mean, obviously, as someone who is going to become the incoming border czar, this is particular priority of the president-elect's, and certainly he has made clear in terms of his agenda that he doesn't necessarily want to waste any time and wants to really hit the ground running. So a visit like this today to Texas at the border with Governor Abbott is certainly essential to trying to get up to speed in terms of being ready to put some of these policies in place on day one, including, as you mentioned, the president-elect has been very clear that he wants to move very aggressively with respect to this mass deportation plan, even as, many question how all of this will come together in short order. And furthermore, we know that Homan has been very no nonsense when it comes to policies around the border. So that's part of why you saw him there in Texas today.
Nikole Killion, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.